Jesus wasn't tempted in the wilderness because he was weak. He was tempted because something had just been completed. 40 days of fasting, 40 days of silence, 40 days alone with God, and only after all of that, the enemy arrives. So here's what most people never question. Why would Satan wait until Jesus is spiritually stronger to approach him? Because that doesn't make sense, unless everything we think about temptation is wrong. We assume fasting builds a shield. We assume prayer makes you untouchable. We assume spiritual strength pushes darkness away. But the wilderness reveals something different. After 40 days, Jesus is not surrounded. He is not in a crowd. He is not performing miracles yet. He is isolated, hungry, physically weakened. And that is exactly where the confrontation begins. Not random, not chaotic, strategic, because the enemy does not always attack at your lowest point. Sometimes he waits until you are right before your next level, right before purpose becomes public, right before impact is released. And in that desert, something begins to move. Silence turns into tension. Tension turns into awareness. And then it happens. Not a roar, not chaos, a presence, watching, calculating. Then finally, the approach. This is the part most people never notice. The Bible said, after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. Hungry. That single word changes the atmosphere completely, because Jesus was spiritually full, but physically drained. And Satan understands human weakness. That is why the enemy often waits. Not because he is absent, but because timing matters. Think about it. Satan did not interrupt on day 1, not day 10, not even day 30. He waited until Jesus was at his weakest physically. The desert had already taken its toll. The nights were freezing, the days unbearable. Dust covered his feet. His breathing had slowed. Every movement carried exhaustion. And that was the exact moment Satan appeared. Not afraid, not intimidated, moving through the wilderness like darkness itself belonged there. But why would Satan approach someone filled with the Spirit of God? Because spiritual power does not remove temptation. Even Jesus was tempted. That destroys the illusion many people believe today. Some think being on fire for God means the enemy will never come near them. But Jesus had just completed 40 days of fasting, and the confrontation still came. The battle was not avoided, it was faced. And suddenly the wilderness became more than a desert. It became a battlefield. But Satan's first attack was subtle, not violent, not loud, psychological.
If you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread.
Because Satan was not attacking hunger first. He was attacking identity. If you are the Son of God. In other words, why suffer like this if you have power? Why stay hungry if you can change it? Why endure weakness if you can escape it? The temptation was deeper than bread. It was about using divine power outside the will of God. And suddenly the stones around Jesus looked different. Cold desert rocks, shaped almost like loaves of bread. The hunger became unbearable, the silence heavier, the temptation closer. Imagine the scene, endless wilderness, wind screaming through the desert, a starving man kneeling in exhaustion, and beside him an ancient evil whispering, "Turn these stones into bread." No crowd watching, no angels speaking, no public miracle, just a private battle hidden in the wilderness. And the terrifying part is this: the temptation itself sounded reasonable. That is how deception works. The enemy rarely begins with obvious destruction. Sometimes he begins with something that sounds justified. You are hungry. You deserve relief. You have power. So why suffer? But Jesus answered with words stronger than hunger itself.
Man shall not live by bread alone.
Something shifted in the wilderness. Because Satan had just discovered something terrifying. Jesus would not abandon obedience, even under suffering. But the confrontation was not over. It was only beginning. And what Satan tried next was even more dangerous. The devil failed to break him with hunger. So the strategy changed, because Satan adapts. If physical weakness would not work, then maybe pride would. Suddenly, the wilderness scene disappears. The atmosphere changes, height, wind, danger, the holy city below, and Jesus standing at the edge of the temple, far above the ground, one step from the edge. Then Satan speaks again. If you are the Son of God. The same attack, identity, always identity, because the enemy wants people to prove what God already said.
If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down.
It sounded spiritual. That is what made it dangerous. Then Satan did something shocking. He quoted scripture. Even the devil used holy words. Because deception becomes more powerful when truth is twisted. The wind roared around the temple, the height below looked endless, and Satan continued speaking.
He will command his angels concerning you.
In other words, force God to protect you. Make heaven prove itself. Show the world who you are. But this temptation was never really about jumping. It was about testing God. It was about forcing divine timing. It was about using power for spectacle.
Go ahead. Prove your power. He has promised his angels will catch you. You will not even strike your foot against a stone.
To seek glory before the process is complete. But Jesus refused again.
You shall not test the Lord your God.
Another rejection, another victory. And now the atmosphere changes again. Because Satan realizes something. Jesus cannot be manipulated through hunger. He cannot be manipulated through pride. So now comes the final temptation. The most dangerous offer yet. Not bread, not spectacle. Power. The kind of power that has destroyed kingdoms. The kind of power people kill for. The kind of power capable of corrupting souls. And somewhere above the wilderness, darkness prepared one final offer. Final. The wilderness became silent again. Too silent. As if creation itself was holding its breath. Then suddenly, the scene changes. Mountains, impossible height. Storm clouds moving across the sky. Darkness stretching across the earth below. And standing beside Jesus, Satan reveals his final strategy. Power. The kingdoms of the world appeared before him, cities glowing in the distance, crowds, armies, thrones, wealth, dominion, the glory of nations unfolding beneath the storm. And then Satan spoke the most dangerous words yet.
All these things I will give you.
Satan was offering a shortcut. No suffering, no rejection, no betrayal, no cross, no crucifixion, no nails, no blood, just power, instantly. One decision away, one moment of compromise, one act of worship, and history changes forever. That was the real temptation, not bread, not pride, a crown without suffering, authority without sacrifice, glory without obedience, and for the first time, the wilderness feels truly terrifying. Because this was not merely temptation anymore, this was an attempt to corrupt destiny itself. The storm intensified, smoke moved across the mountains, the kingdoms glowed beneath the dark sky, and Satan waited, calm, confident, as if he believed this was the moment Jesus might finally break. Because suffering scares people, pain weakens people, waiting frustrates people. And Satan understands human nature. But Jesus looked back across the kingdom and refused everything.
Away from me, Satan!
The words hit like thunder, not loud, not emotional, absolute authority. And suddenly the atmosphere changed. The wind exploded across the mountain. Dark smoke twisted violently. The shadows retreated. Because Satan had failed. Not against weakness, against obedience. Jesus had endured hunger, he endured isolation, he endured manipulation, and now he rejected power itself. The final temptation collapsed, and the wilderness would never be the same again. But the real question still remains. Why did Satan even try? Why approach someone filled with the Spirit of God? Why come near Jesus after 40 days of fasting? Wouldn't the wilderness be dangerous for darkness itself? That is what many people assume. But this story reveals something shocking about spiritual warfare. The enemy is not always frightened by spiritual activity. Sometimes, he attacks because spiritual movement threatens him. Jesus was preparing to change the world. The miracles had not started yet. The blind had not seen yet. The dead had not risen yet. The cross had not happened yet. But hell already saw what was coming. And Satan moved early. Because the wilderness was preparation, not protection from battle. Preparation for battle. That changes the meaning of fasting completely. Fasting did not stop the confrontation. It prepared Jesus to overcome it. And many people misunderstand this even today. They believe prayer removes every storm, every temptation, every attack. But Scripture shows something different. Even after 40 days with God, Jesus still faced the enemy directly. Because spiritual maturity is not proven by avoiding temptation. It is proven by overcoming it. And suddenly the wilderness becomes deeply personal. Because many people are confused when attacks come after prayer, after growth, after fasting, after pursuing God seriously. They ask, why is this happening now? But maybe the wilderness explains it. Maybe some battles appear because purpose is getting closer, because breakthrough is getting closer, because destiny is becoming dangerous to darkness. And that is why Satan approached Jesus, not because heaven was absent, but because heaven was moving. There is another terrifying detail hidden inside this story. Satan never forced Jesus to sin. He tempted him, suggested, manipulated, whispered. Because darkness often works through persuasion, not force. Think about every temptation carefully. Turn stones into bread. Throw yourself down. Bow and receive the kingdoms.
All the power, all the kingdoms of this world, they could be yours if you would just kneel before me.
The same pattern still exists today. The enemy studies weakness, studies exhaustion, studies desire, and often waits until people are emotionally vulnerable. That is why the wilderness matters so much. Jesus was isolated, hungry, physically weakened, yet spiritually focused. And that combination created confrontation, because temptation often intensifies in lonely places, in silent places, in seasons where nobody sees the struggle. That is where hidden battles happen. And most people watching this have experienced their own wilderness, moments where life felt silent, heavy, confusing, moments where exhaustion made temptation louder, moments where darkness whispered, take the shortcut, compromise, give up, force the outcome. That is why this story still feels alive thousands of years later. Because the wilderness never truly disappeared, it only changed form, and the enemy still uses the same strategies. But there is one reason Satan ultimately failed against Jesus. Jesus never separated power from obedience. That was the difference, because Satan offered glory without submission to God, and that same temptation still destroys people today. Power without character, success without patience, fame without process, influence without obedience. The wilderness exposed all of it, and Jesus overcame every offer. Then finally, silence returned. The storm faded, the wind slowed across the desert, and Satan disappeared into darkness, defeated. Not through violence, not through spectacle, but through unwavering obedience. And then something beautiful happened. Angels came after the battle, not before it. That detail matters deeply. Heaven did not stop Jesus from entering the wilderness, but heaven strengthened him through it. And suddenly the meaning of the story becomes clearer. The wilderness was never proof God abandoned Jesus. It was part of preparation, part of refinement, part of victory. And maybe that changes how we see our own battles too. Because many people think struggle means God is distant. But Jesus was led into the wilderness by the Spirit Himself. The confrontation was not accidental, it was allowed. And that truth is uncomfortable because people love stories about glory. But the wilderness comes before ministry, before miracles, before public impact, before purpose unfolds openly. And Jesus walked through all of it first, hungry, alone, tempted, yet unshaken, which makes the original question even more powerful. Why was Satan not afraid to approach Jesus after 40 days of fasting? Because darkness hoped exhaustion would break obedience, but it failed, completely. And from that wilderness, Jesus emerged ready, not weakened spiritually, proven spiritually. The miracles were coming next. The authority was coming next. The kingdom was about to move, and hell had already lost the first confrontation. The most dangerous lie people believe is that being spiritually strong means temptation disappears. But Jesus destroyed that illusion forever in the wilderness. The temptation still came. The confrontation still happened. The whispers still came close, even after 40 days of fasting. And that changes how spiritual warfare should be understood, because sometimes the enemy attacks hardest near transition seasons, near purpose, near breakthrough, near calling, right before impact. The wilderness story reveals something terrifying and hopeful at the same time. Temptation is not always proof of weakness. Sometimes it is proof that something valuable is inside you, something dangerous to darkness. And Satan saw that in Jesus. He saw the kingdom coming. He saw lives that would be changed. He saw chains that would be broken. He saw the cross approaching, and he tried to stop it before it began. But the wilderness became the place of failure for darkness itself, because Jesus refused every shortcut, every compromise, every manipulation, and thousands of years later, the desert still speaks. The blowing sand, the silence, the hunger, the shadows, the voice whispering in the wilderness, and one exhausted man standing firm against it all, not by spectacle, not by intimidation, but by obedience to God. So the next time someone asks, why was Satan bold enough to come near Jesus after 40 days of fasting? Remember this, the fasting was not meant to stop the battle. It prepared him to win it. And that victory in the wilderness changed history forever. What do you think was Satan's real goal in the wilderness? Was he trying to attack Jesus' hunger, his identity, or stop his mission before it began? And do you think spiritual attacks become stronger when someone is getting closer to purpose? Comment your thoughts below.